My people, we're ready to mount up like an eagle. Stand and fight against evil. A system rigged and deceitful.
What's good, family? Welcome to the King Talks podcast, where we're all about the truth, community, and discussing the things you care about. I'm your host, Sean Slaughter. And on today's show, we interview Speech of Arrested Development. He is the leader of the two-time Grammy Award winning hip-hop collective, Arrested Development. He and the group have been a groundbreaking force in hip-hop culture since 1991. Their debut album, 3 years, 5 months, and 2 days in the life of, sold over 4 million albums and earned 2 Grammy Awards. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame even named the Arrested Development smash Tennessee one of the top 500 songs that shaped rock and roll. I'm so honored to be interviewing Speech. Let's get into it.
My people, we're ready to mount up like an eagle. Stand and fight against evil. A system rigged and deceitful. King, you can hear it when I rhyme. I'm a king, renewed in my mind. I'm a king, I got a different bloodline. I'm a king, jump, I am a king. I'm a king.
I mean, this guy I grew up listening to his group's music, and it's just a blessing to have him on the line to really discuss and break down some of the topics in the community, and particularly his video on YouTube called Nigga Factory. It is Speech, formerly of Arrested Development. Speech, what's up, man?
I'm doing good. I'm still with Arrested Development, though. I just wanted to clear that part up. But thank you for having me on the show.
No doubt, still with Arrested Development. So Arrested Development is, I'm guessing it's almost like a rock band where the name changes, just maybe some of the players. The name stays the same, but the players kind of change. Is that how it is? How you treat it?
No, exactly right. I'm the only original member in the existing group, and we tour the whole world. We still tour, United States. We pretty much four different continents we're on pretty much every year.
No doubt. And you said you're actually working on new music.
Yeah.
When is that music going to drop? What does that music sound like, particularly in today's hip hop landscape? Where does Arrested Development find itself?
I feel like we're extremely cutting edge and progressive, still very fresh. The content that we talk about, hardly anyone is talking about it. And I think it's extremely energetic and great. But it's like I'm working with a lot of different young producers, people in their early 20s. And I also produce myself. So between, that type of energy and my energy, I feel like it brings something new to the table. And at the same time, it has a lot of the what I'll call wisdom from, being older and being able to see where hip hop began and things of that nature. So I think it has a little bit of both.
And Arrested Development came out, 91, 92 is when you dropped 3 years, 5 months, and 2 days.
Our first single dropped in 91. Our first single was Tennessee, and it dropped late 91. And then our album dropped in 1992.
Gotcha. All right, so I want to give the list.
4 million albums, yeah.
No doubt. Two-time Grammy Award winner, MTV Awards, Soul Train Music Award, NAACP Award, Rolling Stone named you the Band of the Year. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame said Tennessee is one of the top 500 songs that shaped rock and roll. So for those who are listening and don't know, you better ask somebody. I also want to
there you go.
I also want to put this plug in. To me, I read this and I was like, yeah, this is dope. All right. So check this out. So in 1992, you had Dr. Dre's The Chronic. You had Beastie Boys' Check Your Head, which was it. Yeah. They were kind of, their earlier stuff was probably more popular. You had Pete Rock and CL Smooth, Mecca and the Soul Brother, classic.
Yeah.
You had
classic.
The Far Side's Bizarre Ride. You had Gangstar's Daily Operation. Eric B. and Rakim's Don't Sweat the Technique. Redman's What the Album. Common's Can I Borrow a Dollar? And the only album that year that cracked the top 40 was 3 years, 5 months, and 2 days in the life of. Just amazing. Just to kind of let people know the landscape. And back in those days, I was in high school. 92, I would have been a sophomore in high school. And so I'm very familiar with all that music. You guys made an amazing impact. And you're still making an amazing impact today. Back in the day, if you listen to some of the albums that I named, Redman, which, you know, everybody knew Redman for smoking blunts. Or maybe Dr. Dre's The Chronic, which had kind of the whole idea of smoking blunts and you know, that's probably where we really hear the B word. That's really maybe where the B word really became kind of iconic. I know Too Short was really kind of the father of that, but they really made that more mainstream. And so you had all these different albums that were kind of shaping what the idea of maybe thug rap and gangster rap and so on and so forth. And you had your gangsters, you know, maybe sprinkling some consciousness, and you had Eric B. and Rakim sprinkling some consciousness. But you were already there. You were already social. You were already thinking about the world in a different way. And this was shocking. Where did this come from?
Well, first of all, you know, I grew up in a conscious family. So my mother and father, both activists, they were both serial entrepreneurs. My dad owned anything from gas stations to catering businesses to nightclubs. And he was a very driven, tall, black, dark-skinned, 6 foot tall, you know, man from Glimp, Tennessee, very small, rural, southern town, moved to the Midwest and was determined to make some moves and defy what the system wanted him to be. And my mother was from East St. Louis, one of the poorest, most violent sections of St. Louis, and came and met him, and both of them together were determined to change things. They raised me and my brother in such a way where we understood that black people, number one, were deeply intelligent. We were deeply spiritual, and we could do we were born to do many amazing things. And so we strive to do that. And my parents instilled those types of things. My mother owns the Milwaukee Community Journal, which is the largest African-American newspaper in Wisconsin. And she still owns it. It's going on 44 years.
Come on,
and
man.
So when you put all of that together, you know, we were talking about issues in the black community when I was a kid growing up. And we was the only black family, well, there was two black families in an all-white suburban neighborhood, which my parents wanted me to be raised in because of the violence that was happening where they were at. And it was just a very interesting reality, very interesting conversation always going on. Then I would be taken down south every summer to spend time with my father's mother, Ardenia, in Glimp, Tennessee. And that was very poor, very rural. And a lot of what Arrested Development would end up doing, and even our visuals, would be inspired by my times in Tennessee. So that's my background.
Wow. So how did it feel making this type of music and having this type of consciousness as a young kid? You were in your what, late teens, early 20s?
Early 20s, like very early 20s, 21. So our youngest member at the time was Ishi, our dancer, and she was 16. So, well, no, she was 13 when we first started. So, you know, pretty young. But I will say this, you know, there's such a huge misconception, brother, that it takes you being 30, 40 in order to get consciousness. That's a very new concept that has been conditioned onto us by corporate culture. The truth is, most of the movements that we know of, most of the heroes that we speak of, were all in their 20s. You know, whether it's Dr. Martin Luther King or the Black Panther Party or Malcolm X, all of these various people were very young with incredibly progressive and just ideas for the world. And so it starts when you're young, and a lot of the energy that you see from youth can be directed into activism. We just have to direct it that way.
Well, where has that gone? Because you're right. I mean, watching a Black Panther documentary and seeing that some of these dudes, I mean, they were college. These are college kids.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
You're talking late teens. You're talking early 20s. And you're talking, speaking profoundly, deeply, really standing up for the whole culture at such an early age. And fast forward today, I guess we can see a little bit of that maybe in, something like the Black Lives Matter movement or other different movements that, uplift Black people or try to make a fight for social change. But it feels like we don't see as much of that anymore today. Why is that?
Well,
from the young perspective.
There has been a purposeful disconnect taught to this new generation, meaning they want the new generation to disconnect from the continuum of freedom fighters, liberation fighters, resistance fighters of all races. They want this generation to be disconnected from them. They don't want them to know who Marcus Garvey is. They don't want him to know the accomplishments that he accomplished. They don't want them to know the freedom fighters of the past, so that they can feel as if whatever they do now is enough. When in truth, when you have historical perspective of what has already come before you, then you know that this is a continuum, and then you can honestly judge whether we're moving forward or taking steps backwards. Because progress is all relative. Somebody can suggest that you're moving forward, but someone from the past could say, no, you're actually moving backwards. We've seen that already. We've been that far already. And that's what we need more continuing of. And not just Black people, by the way. This is a conversation in a worldview that, in my opinion, needs to happen for whites and everyone else in between. Because so much of those that fight against justice today also don't know the continuum. They don't know how far America has come in the past. And so they don't see that we're moving backwards in certain areas. They don't know how evil America has been in the past towards Black people in particular, but also towards other people. So therefore, they don't know how evil things can get in this country as well. I think that the continuum has been separated. And so people are just lost. They don't really understand what is progress. They don't understand how to measure things right now. And that's the same with hip hop music as well, which is, by the way, the biggest and most powerful genre in the entire world right now. And it's something that Black and brown, particularly Black people, created. So it's a very interesting time we're in right now.
Watching the video, you kind of bring up a couple of these points. And the first thing, Chuck D says that in your video, he says that BET and MTV were major players in the nigger factory, and that the whole idea was to extend a Black man's teenage years to 35. I found that blew my mind. Because this is really one of the only music genres where, if I look at, let's take somebody, well, she's kind of doing some different stuff now, but let's take somebody like Miley Cyrus or even Britney Spears, who kind of had their, if you want to call it, kind of their teenage years, in their teenage years. And even though Miley's still young, in her 20s, and I think Britney is, I'm not sure how old she is, but she's definitely older than Miley. But the expectation from for these guys is that their music is supposed to mature in a certain way, right? So, Britney Spears may not make the same type of song that she did when she was, she's not going to be singing "Baby Hit Me One More Time" again, or Miley Cyrus is not going to be twerking again like she did when she first came out. There's an expectation for that maturity. How come in hip hop that same expectation is not even there, and sometimes is even frowned upon when an artist says, you know what, I did that in my youth. I was young. I was stupid. Whatever. Now I am, doing this, or I'm talking about this. This is kind of my maturation. How come that's hard for us to grow up?
Okay, I'm glad you brought this up. So to be very specific, first off, Chuck said that for men and women, and you see it in the society. I think that's why it blew your mind. When Chuck said that they have extended the years from 17 to 35, and by the time, teenage years, I should say, to 35, 36, and by the time they wake up out of the fog, they've gotten kids by now, they got a house note,
right,
and they can never become effective activists because they have to basically tend to just the bare necessities of their life. But it goes even deeper because Miley Cyrus, she had fun with the twerking thing, and then she denounced rap the year after. She said, the lyrics are they're too ratchet for me. It's not for me. So she has fun with it. A lot of white artists have fun with this type of stuff. They have fun with something that we stay in a perpetual locked grind in, where for decades now, not just hip hop, R&B, and everything else that's been promoted in the mainstream, that is. I understand that there's underground music that covers numerous topics, but even that needs to be discussed among us, because why is it that a Rhapsody, who's a great hip hop artist, not just good, she's great, she's phenomenal. Why is she, who speaks about numerous issues, or Bahamadia, who's a legendary, seasoned, amazing female artist, who rhymes still to this day, why are these people relegated to the underground when, on the other hand, a Cardi B or a Nicki Minaj is relegated not just to mainstream, but literal pop superstars within black music? Same difference with Migos, or same difference with Lil Wayne, or who you name it. So black music has been hijacked by themes of death, meaning killing one another, not hurting one another, not that that's acceptable either, but killing one another, talking about gunplay, talking about shooting, killing. Then it talks about our women as B's and H's and thoughts and chicken heads and you name it. It talks about drugs straight up in the songs, whether it's bricks or whatever they're talking about. It's talking about gang affiliation. All of these things are commonplace in hip hop music, the number one genre across the planet Earth. We no longer even have a tag called black music anymore. It's called urban music.
That's right.
Our urban music has been hijacked by these themes when it comes to mainstream artists. You could go to your radio or to your favorite streaming service right now, and if you play whatever's hot in urban music, that's what you're going to find, song after song for decades now. So why is that? I think that we have to start questioning that. I share why it is in the Nigga Factory Part 1, 2, and 3, which is 3 is coming up soon.
Okay.
It is a purposeful assault on our humanity and on our community and our culture, to where now black culture is very much intertwined with ratchet culture. So those two things are intertwined. And so many people would say what our black culture is and what's a real black person. I don't know if you've ever said that term. I've said it before. Like, they real black, or she real black. That's a real black dude. What that always entails, it never, at least in my experience as a 51-year-old black man, it never entails an intelligent, educated, diverse careered person. It always entails somebody who is possibly more ratchet. So on. Those things have become synonymous with black culture. And that's been over years and years of conditioning through mainstream media and other mediums as well.
No doubt. No doubt. I did, I did Christian rap music for about 15 years and, released a bunch of albums and traveled pretty extensively. And currently I'm a teacher. I actually teach at an alternative school, and the majority of our students are, our school can hold to 150 kids. 95% of those kids are black boys. I love doing it. I'm a technology teacher, so I love teaching. those students. I love being with those students, and I love challenging and building relationships with those students. And we have some common, we find some common grounds on music because I did music, and a lot of them like music. What's interesting, though, is the statement that you just made about what is really black and the redefinition of black, because this very thing comes up day in and day out. The smart kid with glasses that wants to read at lunch is not really black.
Exactly.
He doesn't.
It's not a real black dude.
You ain't really black because you read,
right?
Because you're smart, because you actually want to pass your grades. And the one that is, kind of causing trouble, is a thug, talks back. You know what I'm saying? He's a real one. And
exactly
what I find interesting about this idea is something that you just said. You said that really this whole concept, and what you're trying to do and reteach and enlighten is really not just for black people, it's for white people. I did a class with my church, and there was black and white people within this class. And this class basically talked about, it was deep. It was talking about church and religion, but it was also talking about how some of the misconceptions that have come through religion, when it comes to just some of the practice that we practice and don't even think about, and we're like, hey, that really was something that was changed or twisted or something that was used to misdirect us black people. Let's go and rediscover it. We're talking about social justice, and it was amazing how some of the white folks literally had no idea. And I think we as black folks think that some of them have idea. Maybe they're doing this purposefully. Of course some are. But some of them really have no idea. So I guess the real question is, for instance, was it Carpool Karaoke with James Corden? I think you showed that on your video. And you talked about how
Amigos
Yes, and you talked about how white folks need to be re-educated, but how in this day and age, the celebration of black culture and the connection with black culture. For instance, we see James Corden in the car with the Migos, and we can almost see that as unity, right?
Correct.
Hey, we're celebrating together, but really it is what you're saying is, hey, I'm cool with this type of black culture. This other type of black culture, I really don't want to dance with them. You know what I'm saying? That's not really fun.
Correct.
How do you navigate that? Because you might have some white people saying, hey, we're trying to celebrate you. We're trying to find common ground with you. We're trying to engage with your culture. But every time they engage with our culture, it's in that negative aspect. And so now we're saying, no. We don't want you to engage with us on this front because a lot of us don't support this front. We want to engage with on this front. It can be very confusing. How can we help white folks really navigate these avenues in order to engage with us in a way that we want them to engage with us in a holistic way?
That's a fantastic question. And the answer is we must expose what white supremacy is and when it started. Most white people and many black people feel that white supremacy is some remote group that's somewhere out in the country practicing for race wars and shooting rifles somewhere and wearing hoods and what have you, when in reality, white supremacy is baked into the very fabric of this country. It has been systematically placed into every area in this country that has systems. And so once we realize that, not just blacks, but whites as well, then we can start to turn this big ship around, which takes some time, and start to educate correctly and properly. And I share this a lot on Nigga Factory Part 3. What people have to understand is that James Corden piece is a symbolism of what's been happening since day one. What's funny is Migos they celebrate violence against one another, meaning not within their group, but against another black man at any point in their lyrics. They're saying, look, step to me, you're done. And they celebrate selling drugs, so on and so forth. They talk about all of these various things. All of that is dangerous within the black community, but not in the white community. So their violence is strictly black on black. It has nothing to do, and it's absolutely cute and cuddly with white people. And so that's not just the Migos. I'm speaking about all of these hip hop groups. Dr. Dre is 100% harmless to white people. He is 100% kind and giving and whatever great attribute you want to label him as. To black people, meaning in his lyrics, and not just him, I'm not trying to pick on Dre. This is not a diss to any particular artist. I'm trying to show the generalization of what thug and hip hop music has done over the years is that I'm dangerous to you, black man, black woman, but I am not at all dangerous to the white society. I will never rebel against white society. Sure, I may call out police racism once every 30 or 40 songs. But by and large, I'm going to talk about selling drugs to my community, which devastates the community. It tears apart families. It tears apart the very structure that is godly meant to actually give us support. It tears that very foundation apart. It's going to talk about shooting one another, never talking about shooting any other races of people. It's going to talk about disrespecting our women. Never will it. I've never heard lyrics, and I listen to hip hop. I've never heard lyrics that call out particularly a white woman and say white women are this, that, and the third. All of the implications are talking about women in their neighborhood, yet they will go date women outside of the neighborhood all the time or be with women, but they have no danger, absolutely no danger. So
wow.
These concepts started way before hip hop. Hip hop has just channeled these concepts, and white America has celebrated these concepts by lifting them up and giving deals to these artists, many of them way less talented than people like a Rhapsody or so many other. Neelam, who's a new sister that rhymes. I think she's with the Nation of Islam. And other rhymers like Arrested Development, who was mainstream in the early 90s, but at this point is relegated to the underground as well. Even Public Enemy, who is celebrated for their historical music, but still releases music right now. It is not in the mainstream. Common, who at one point he's very celebrated for other reasons other than music right now, but musically relegated to the underground because he speaks of different things. Talib Kweli, Mos Def, so on and so forth. So there is a purposeful exclusion of these artists and a lift up of what I'll just call ratchet for lack of a better term. And it goes in TV as well, where even brand new shows who are about to release right now still will use, and as black shows, will use these terms, B and ho and all of this type stuff. And it's cool, it's fashionable. And these shows are celebrated for coming out. And so, yes, you asked the question, how do we help white people to know when they're doing what's wrong to our community? Well, first of all, we have to expose what is wrong. We have to get the measurement right. It's very tough for anyone to measure anything if no one's willing to look at the numbers on the ruler. You've got to be able to agree that this, that, and the third is indeed synonymous with white supremacy and we should not embrace it. And then that this, that, and the third on another level is synonymous with black power movement and freedom and liberation. And those whites or Asians or Latinos or any other race of people who want to get involved and help should. And that's what Malcolm X said at the end of his life. Not at the beginnings, but at the end of his life, those that are sincere, we need those people. We need as many voices and as many people as possible to help us to straighten out and further properly define what things are. But right now, the definitions are upside down. And so many people think that black power is indeed calling each other B's and H's and embracing the word nigga as if it's a term of endearment, knowing that it's actually not, knowing anyone who's black and anyone that's been around black people know very much as a fact that that word is used in all types of instances, not just terms of endearment. We know that. That's not even something to be discussed. It's a fact. Sometimes it's a term of endearment. Other times it's the word yelled out right before someone is beat down or killed. It's a word that's just used because we've been defeated. And we use the word because we couldn't change the word or we decided not to change the word.
You know, you say that the definitions are turned upside down, and it can be so conflicting and confusing, even for black folks. They're calling this the hot girl summer, right? And they're calling this the hot girl summer because, if you look at hip hop right now, there are so many women on the forefront. And I was just talking to somebody 2 or 3 days ago, and I said I'm conflicted. I said because I love that there are like in this time right now, there are so many women that are leading hip hop, right? Cardi B, Nicki Minaj, Megan Thee Stallion, City Girls. And so some of the biggest songs out right now are by women. And I'm like, that is awesome. That's amazing. And then I say, on the other hand, I don't want my daughters listening to any of this music because it represents a lifestyle and an ideology that I totally don't agree with. But this is called, but getting back to your point of switching definitions around, this is, I just saw an interview with Megan Thee Stallion. I think Joe Budden was interviewing her, and she defined sexuality. Even City Girls did the same thing as well. Sexuality, robbing dudes for their money, giving up sex for money or to get whatever you want. That was defined as woman empowerment. And I'm sitting there like, are we serious right now? Is this real? So, I mean, that's just really to your point on how these definitions have changed. But a question I want you to answer.
Can I hit on that right quick?
Go ahead. What
you just said? I'm sorry. Please remember the question.
No, go ahead, man. Yeah, go ahead, take it.
Brother, and you teach, so I go into elementary schools and middle schools, and I talk to the kids. And this is all they're listening to.
Yeah.
The themes that you just expressed are the themes that are helping to formulate this next generation of children. Many of which come from single parent households. The mother is working her tail off. The father is off somewhere else, sometimes in prison. And the children are looking to other sources, just like I did. A lot of times entertainment. Who's on TV is influencing them. Who's hot in hip hop or in music in general is influencing them. And I know for me, hip hop lyrics throughout my life have become like a book of Proverbs. I can list off various things that certain MCs have said that for me, they're my own personal book of Proverbs. These are things that I have taken with me throughout my life. Right now, worldviews are being formed and young kids are being molded by what they're hearing in hip hop, and not just in America. See, there used to be this philosophy in hip hop where I write music from my hood. I write music from my block. No one believes that anymore. Even if they say it, they know very well. And especially with the business model of becoming a mogul, you know very well that you are writing beyond your block. You know very well that you are hoping to impact the entire planet and at the very least the United States. But I will say this music is reaching, and it has been for a long time now, reaching way past the block, way past the state you represent or the city you rep, way past the United States, on into all these various other continents that I just said earlier in this interview that I travel to. I go there in person. And in person, I can have a Japanese person come up to me with no hesitation and say, my nigga, and not know any cultural ramifications of that word. They can say B's and H's, and they think that's what we want them to say. So, yes, it is deeply damaging, and it is deeply serious, and we've got to start to address these issues, and that's what the Nigga Factory does.
In the Nigger Factory, you talk about, you make a statement where you say that this marketing campaign, which really is a great word to use, this marketing campaign that has been waged against black people has been happening since slavery. And
Correct.
it continues to carry on after the emancipation of black people through Jim Crow laws, through segregation. But I would have some people argue and say, well, we're free now, right? We're not segregated. We don't have Jim Crow laws. We have people like Diddy and Jay-Z who are multi-millionaires, even billionaires, who own not just record labels, but TV and products and services and things like that. My question is, where does the responsibility lie? Because when you say they don't want us and they don't, are we talking about corporate America? Are we talking about the artists? Are we talking about both? Like, who has the responsibility, or who's responsible for continuing this, this modern day mimicry of black people in media?
What white supremacy is a mindset that is the initiators of this campaign of demeaning black people and demeaning any other people of color as well, but I'll speak on blacks for now. And there are co-conspirators who are willing or unwilling, and that is primarily anyone of power. And who happens to be the people in this country and really throughout a lot of the world who are the most in power? White men, and also white women in a passive nature. So I use the terms they in this film a lot, really to wake us up to what the agenda is, the white supremacist agenda is. Again, there's some willing and some unwilling, but nonetheless co-conspirators in this agenda. There are also blacks within this agenda, and the goal is to expose them as well in the nigger factory, so that those of us who are realizing that there's something wrong here and we've got to do something about it, at least you know who the quote unquote enemy is. And it's a concept, it's a mindset, it's not necessarily a human being. The Bible talks about the war is not against the flesh and blood, but against the evil realms and the evil spirits that are in the heavenly realms that take control of the hearts and minds of those on the earthly realms. So it is not against white people because you're white. It's a white supremacist mindset. And many of us have that, sometimes not by our own intentions. So we are taught white supremacy in almost every area. As soon as you go to school, what countries and what nations and kingdoms do we learn about? Greece, Rome, so on and so forth. We learn nothing about African contributions whatsoever. These things are put into our curriculums, whether it's in school, then it's put into the media where they have whites being portrayed as God or Jesus or Egyptian or pretty much anything that has ever happened that is instrumental in history. White people are at the base of it. And I cover all of this in Nigga Factory Part 3. It goes much deeper than Part 1 and 2. So these things are baked into the system, and these are the things that have to be changed in order for us to get a different mindset for the future.
I find that interesting, and I would agree with it. There was a book I was reading, and it basically said, in a sense, paraphrasing, it said basically that the oppressor's goal really is ultimately achieved when the people that are oppressed begin wearing their oppression as a badge of honor.
And we are past that. We are there.
Yeah. I mean, so so when you say white supremacy as a mindset, I can see it. I can see where it started. Of course, colonizers coming and instilling that mindset, and I found it fascinating when you guys watched the Nigger Factory. You actually had me doing some research. It talks about Thomas Jefferson writing the Declaration of Independence while owning 175 slaves. It talks about Abraham Lincoln, where he talked about basically that there's a physical difference between black and white people that he believes will forever forbid the two races to live together on terms of social and political equality. I actually went and looked that up and looked up the whole speech. And I'm like, this is amazing. We credit this guy with giving black people independence and emancipating black people. But in his debate speech, this is where his speech is for debates, he was saying these things. But now looking forward, as that white supremacy as a mindset, I can kind of see it today in some of our artists. You know, you put a picture on your Instagram, and you know what I'm talking about, the pre-Grammy party. I believe that
Yes.
Jay-Z held, and you got a lot of flack for that picture, because originally,
yes, I did.
well,
I got death
originally,
threats from that picture.
Are you serious?
Oh, I'm very serious. I got death threats. I got people saying that if they see me, they're going to kick my teeth in. These people, black people, by the way, who said they're going to kick my teeth in, that they would smash my skull, and, you know, just things like this. I mean, death threats.
Well, Speech, if you think about it, right, this picture is put up, and I think as black people, because of our past, we're always looking for some sign of success.
Correct.
You know, I watched Nigga Factory 1 and 2, and I was ready for 3, and I was like, Speech ain't got 3 up. So I just start watching your Nipsey Hussle talk, and
Yes.
you know, you talked about how people talked about Nipsey being a good parent and supporting his community, and you found it interesting just that people found that a topic of discussion, that he was a good parent, like that should be the norm. It's almost like we're looking for the good, and so when the picture goes up of Jay-Z and Meek Mill and Swiss Beats and all these heavy hitters, DJ Khaled, it's almost like we're looking to say, hey, we made it. You know, we're
Exactly.
there. You know, we've achieved success. And what did you say? I'm sure many people have seen it, but what was your comment? Paraphrase. I'm sure you may not know it exactly, but what was your comment on
Sure.
that picture?
To keep perspective and to look at the perception here. So you got Jay-Z, Diddy, a number of other high-powered celebrities who are awesome at what they do, and I applaud them. But keeping perspective that many of them blew up, and I watched it. I've been in hip-hop long enough to have seen their trajectory.
Yeah.
Blew up from initially being drug dealers, talking about killing, talking about, I won't even quote the lyrics. Go back and listen to certain lyrics from our brother Jay-Z, some of which now he's embarrassed about, many of which now he has actually went against and married himself. But before, he was saying never would he do that.
Right.
Lyrics that dissed black women consistently talked about selling drugs, celebrating the money that was made from it. Sure, there was lyrics, especially from Jay-Z, who has also talked about the downsides. But many other artists that's in this picture celebrated this same type of trajectory. And yes, so they've made it. But off the backs, now let's look at what the drug epidemic has done to our people and what the violence epidemic has done to our people. It has devastated communities, not just hurt communities. It has devastated generations of our people. If you go into many of our black communities, there is people in that household who are being taken care of by the grandmother. The mother is strung out. The father is out somewhere. The children, in many instances, are also selling drugs. The mother and father, many times, were selling drugs. This is a generational destruction. And I'm not blaming all of it on hip-hop artists who rap about some of these things. But when you glorify the money that comes from that, that is blood money, the way I see it. And that is to be put into a perspective. It's to be put into context as opposed to just a simple celebration. I don't celebrate. You ever saw the movie New Jack City? I don't know if you're too young for that. So
come on, man.
New Jack City had Wesley Snipes' character, forget his name, who was devastating the community with violence, with drugs, but every Thanksgiving would pass out turkeys, or maybe it was Christmas. I forget the theme of what was happening in the movie. But every Thanksgiving would pass out free turkeys and the community would go nuts. For me personally, I don't celebrate that. And the reason why is because it's 3 steps backwards with 1 step forward. Where's the progress? You can't kill my community. It's like what Malcolm X said. When you stab me with a knife and then pull the knife out 1 inch, but it's a 6-inch knife, have you gotten progress? There's still a knife in my back.
Wow.
You have stabbed me with a knife. I can never lift up someone who is destroying the community through these various means without putting context to it. So can I celebrate a brilliant business mind of a Jay-Z? Yes, I can. Can I celebrate his rhymes and his ability to put words together and make great songs and anthems? Yes, I can. But all of that has to be put into context. And we as a people must be able to analyze our people, no matter how successful they are. And what I find is happening is we're quick to analyze a Bill Cosby. We're quick to cancel a Bill Cosby. We're quick to cancel a Michael Jackson if a special comes out and says that he messed with some kids or what have you. We're quick to cancel a Oprah because she's done an interview with the people that accuse Michael Jackson. But we are not quick to cancel any of these people who have said blatantly for decades now that they would kill any one of us, that they would sell any one of our women on the streets for a couple of bucks. They have lyrically pimped our women, lyrically killed our men, lyrically, and sometimes in real life, have sold drugs to our people. And we will not cancel or criticize any of them. We won't even analyze them. And anyone like me or anyone like me who analyzes them will get death threats. That's how far we've come with celebrating
Crazy.
the oppression that white supremacy has put on us. They will actually want to cancel me, but won't want to analyze, just analyze and put into context what is considered success in our community.
Wow.
It's ridiculous.
Do you envision, and we're going to start wrapping up, but do you envision a time where, and I don't want to sound like a dude where it's like, let's go back to the 90s. I don't want to sound like that cat, but, in the late 80s and the early 90s, there were, which the Nigga Factory talks about, there were a variety of voices. So you may have had your NWAs, but you also had your De La Souls and your Positive Ks and your Intelligent Hoodlums and so on and so forth. Do you envision in hip-hop music a time where we have a variety of voices again? Can that even happen?
It can happen.
Okay.
It can happen, but it takes a wide amount of consciousness. Our consciousness needs to be raised to such a place where the majority, or at least a good number of black people, have become conscious. Not just conscious of police brutality or of mass incarceration, but also conscious of what black liberation has always meant and what it still means today. Because when we get that good number of people becoming conscious, we will not support, even if we love the beat, we will not support a record that disrespects our women. We will not support hip hop artists who speak like flippantly about killing another black man. We will not support music that degrades our community and who uplifts selling drugs, which we know destroys any community, but destroys and has destroyed our community in very specific ways throughout the 80s on into today. We will not celebrate these things, and we will insist upon a different narrative being pumped into our ears or our minds or our eyes if we're watching it on television. We will insist upon it, and our consciousness needs to be raised. And that's why voices like myself need to be heard more, because right now, even the term consciousness is being stolen from the continuum, from those that fought against slavery when they were first coming over on the slave ships. Forget when they got here. That continuum has been there since day one.
Yeah.
And we've got to support that continuum instead of distorting it. And there's this new consciousness of, well, we embrace the ratchetness. And look, I get what ratchetness is. I'm not even against having that energy somewhere on the Richter scale. I'm just saying, when we embrace that as the general point of black culture, we have started to distort what woke or consciousness even is. Most of the conscious teachers from our past would never have looked at that as acceptable in activism, because it literally opposes what the outcome of what we're fighting for. It literally opposes it. To kill each other, to sell drugs to one another, to put money as the ultimate goal. Money was never the ultimate goal. Anyone knows, whether you've studied it spiritually or in any other place, that if money is your ultimate goal, you can easily be bought. There's always someone that can buy you if money is your ultimate goal. Money can't be a conscious people's goal.
Right.
I'm not saying we don't need money. We all need money. But I'm saying as your ultimate goal, it cannot be.
Yeah. I think that's the difference between the love of money versus liking money and making friends with it, like the Bible talks about. Make friends with mammon. Use it as a tool.
Correct.
Versus falling in love
correct.
with it. But Speech, I want to thank you so much, and I think that, just kind of a last thought. I think one of the ways that we can help turn this tide, we can help this redefinition. God makes a version, and of course, sin and Satan creates a perversion, and I think what we're seeing is a perversion of what things, when it comes to black culture, when it comes to activism, identity, you're seeing a perversion. But I think in order to reteach that version, we have to do some of the things that that I've been doing. I do music programs and reach out into the community. You as well, your 16 Bars program, your Victory Spot program, you creating Nigga Factory. But can you talk about just some of the programs that you're doing, 16 Bars, Victory Spot, and what you're doing in these programs to help this redefinition, help us get back to the original version of who we are?
You said it perfectly, my brother. So I'll just say, you can't just speak, you got to do. The Bible says faith without deeds is dead. So I have started an art school. We teach what I'm speaking about live on the air right now to young kids and adults. I have put out documentaries. My music for 30 years straight has been a consistent weather bell for the things that I've talked about on this program. I have a scholarship fund which has raised over $1 million to send black kids throughout college, throughout universities, many of them now doctors and lawyers. So for 30 years now, 27 years, this has been going on. We have Black Existence, which is one of my IG pages, which lifts up positive black images, beautiful black images from around the world to celebrate the black diaspora. So go to Black Existence on IG. And of course, my solo music as well. So yeah, all of these things are examples of what I speak of so that people don't think it's just about speaking and not doing.
Awesome. And I'm actually, as you're talking, because I saw the other things, but I didn't see the Black Existence. And I'm on the IG right now, and these photos are dope, man. This thing is so amazing.
Beautiful. It's beautiful. I agree.
It's funny because, images can speak so much louder than words. And
it sure can.
When you constantly see it's almost like the campaign that Hitler, did when he continually put forth the same images and blasted the same sounds in order to almost hypnotize a people. And it seems like we have to sometimes take those take those same take that same technique and
tactics
to get back to where we are. This Westside is awesome. Where can people?
Thank you.
Give us the website. Give us your IG. How can people get in contact with you? You speak. You do all. I mean, you're so involved when it comes to media and the retransformation of Black media. How can people get in contact with you?
I made it very simple for those that have been inspired by anything I've said to reach me. Go to brotherspeech.com. And you could go to everything I've mentioned, from the 16 Bars documentary where I go into jails and make music with inmates, to Nigga Factory, which is a 3-part documentary about the marketing campaign to demean Black images worldwide, to Black existence. Everything is at brotherspeech.com.
Awesome. Speech, thank you so much. Enlightening. Make sure you guys go check out the Nigga Factory on YouTube. You pay nothing for it. He gave it to you for free, so you have no excuse. And man, it's been a pleasure talking to you today, Speech.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. God bless you. And I'm always in support of what y'all are doing.
Thank you, bro. Peace.
Peace.
Yeah. I brought the Kings with me on this one. It's a movement. Yeah. I had a dream. I saw Black slaves in 2018, pulling them big king with a crown in the middle, looking like tug of war. I guess they forgot the inheritance of the Lord, dying over streets when God gave him the earth. It's all in the Bible, just do your research. White man's religion, that's just fake news. The cross hit Africa for Europe even knew. This ain't black versus white, this is dark versus light. But racism might distract you from the Christ on sight. So here's the Visine, me and my team. Dark world, but we flipping on a high beam. King, K is for the knowledge, I is to inspire. N for the nurture, the G is to grow higher. Jesus lit the match, so we all on fire. You see a crown on the attire, know you looking at a fighter.
My people,